Heyo, Greg Branos here for the Coach Speak Index Wednesday afternoon, and we're ripping a Ball Mania 6 draft on Underdog, trying to win $2 million. Got a very special guest with me today to help me in this endeavor. He is a senior fantasy writer for CBS Sports, Jamey Eisenberg. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I got a question. So when you win, because we're doing this for you, what's the first purchase?
Oh man, a Criterion closet. I want the entire Criterion closet, an actual closet with the entire Criterion collection in there, which now is probably about $45,000, $50,000 for the entire thing.
Okay.
Yeah, just a dumb purchase.
Listen, that's what this is for, right? To have some dumb purchases.
That's right. Some hopes and dreams. All right, we're going to jump in a draft, BBM 6 draft, giving y'all a 5-second heads up. We'll see how many people are waiting, and it's 6 people. So there's room if folks want to jump in there. Jamey, is it true that you were a beat writer for the Miami Dolphins back in the day?
Very back in the day, but yes, I was with the my first job was the Boca Raton News, so I covered the Dolphins a little bit for them, and then I was the backup beat writer for the Palm Beach Post for a few different lead beat writers. So it was a lot of fun to learn from some great guys. But yes, once upon a time, I was today I would have been at Dolphins practice and paying attention to Tua complaining about Tyreek, and unfortunately covering the news about Artie Burns and all those things. So would have been it was always fun, but would have been an interesting day.
Who were the coaches there?
So when I first started covering the team, it was I had Jimmy Johnson's last season into Dave Wanstead, a little bit of Nick Saban, because that was at the time when I was starting to get the job at CBS. But mostly it was I had Cam Cameron, his season there too. So it was a lot of the main guy for me was Dave Wanstead.
Where does Dave Wanstead rank in the all-time mustache rankings for head coaches?
Oh, I mean, he's up there.
Him and Ditka?
Yeah, and both Chicago guys are in tied to Chicago. Yeah, I mean, Wanstead was great. He especially I'm sure for what you do, very honest guy. So always pretty genuine with how upfront he was. The whole group. Rick Spielman was there, was the GM for the Vikings for many years. He was, one of the front office guys. So it was a really good, time to be around that team, especially coming from, Jimmy and the expectations that they had. And then Wanstead, had they had a better offense, their defense was amazing. Offensively, though, a little bit challenged. Jay Fiedler was a good quarterback, just not a great quarterback, picking up from where Marino finished.
Yeah. So we have the 12th pick in this draft. I love being on the back end here in drafts this season. Christian McCaffrey is the second running back off the board. That's pretty interesting, going ahead of Saquon and Gibbs there. How are you feeling about McCaffrey this year?
I'm excited. I would take Gibbs over him. I still have Barkley ranked ahead of him, but he's right after those 3 guys. So I think as long as he's healthy, look, he's got as much upside as anybody in the league. We've seen that certainly from his, first 2 years, full years in San Francisco. Just got to stay on the field. That's really the biggest thing for him.
All right, we are on the clock here. ADP-wise, we're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ashton Genty, Brian Thomas Jr., Derrick Henry, Drake London. Any interest in any of these guys?
Obviously, a lot. I think it's always good based on how we've seen drafts go, especially this format. I like to go receiver. So for me, it would probably be Amon-Ra St. Brown and either A.J. Brown or Brian Thomas. I think the upside favors Thomas.
We accidentally drafted Thomas there because the timer ran out, but we can grab Amon-Ra here with him.
Yep, I like that.
All right. Yeah, that's a good start there. Big on Brian Thomas Jr. In that offense with Liam Cohen, who we saw last year, just so good at scheming guys up. And when you just look at the metrics for Brian Thomas Jr. last season, I think Fantasy Points data put out some stuff recently about his numbers from the slot. I think he had like the 9th most fantasy points from the slot, but he ran like the 60th, like 3% or 6% from the slot, something like that. Really low number. And Liam Cohen has talked about, like, we want to move him around. We want to get him in the slot. He's so good in the slot. And they have 3 guys now in De'Ami Brown, Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas Jr., who they feel can all do like kind of similar things in the screen game, which we saw Liam Cohen use a lot last season. So yeah, I feel great about Brian Thomas Jr. this season.
Yeah, and look, some people are concerned that what he did last year, he did it when Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk were injured. You also factor in he did a lot of his damage the last 6 games with Mac Jones, so hopefully the quarterback upgrade is going to be there. But I think the coaching change is just going to be huge for him. Cohen's offense is going to funnel targets, to him and hopefully Hunter. But like you said, they do like De'Ami Brown a lot. And I think we're going to see, a multiple style passing game where these guys will line up in different spots and Liam Cohen will use them in a variety of ways. If Lawrence can ever be that guy, that type of quarterback that they draft him to be, this passing game could be electric. It wouldn't shock me if they win a division. It wouldn't shock me if their offense is in the upper half of the league, if not, competing to be in the top 10. There's just a lot to like about the way that they're headed.
Yeah, pretty decent team on paper, like on both sides of the ball. I think the defense is fine enough. Like people think it'll be one of the worst defenses. I'm not sure it's going to be one of the worst defenses in the league. And I mean, if it is, that's probably better for fantasy, right? Playing a little bit more catch up. But yeah, definitely willing to put some faith in Liam Cohen and this offense.
The thing I like about Thomas also, when you take him, usually it's at the turn, the 1-2 turn, or early in the second round. It's an easy stack in this format. You can get Trevor Lawrence easily, and if you want to go with Hunter or Brown or Strange, it's not a bad team to put your, attach your wagon to, just because they could be, again, more explosive than people think.
Definitely. Omarion Hampton goes 27th overall here, goes ahead of Chase Brown. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. All right, coming up on our pick, we'll have 20 seconds when we're on the clock. Anybody that you're eyeing here? Terry McLaurin, Kyron Williams, Rashee Rice, who's dropping, Mike Evans, George Kittle, Xavier Worthy. We're on the clock.
I don't mind Kyron here. I think it's a good spot for him. His workload is going to be, something I think that people question just because of the addition of Hunter, but I still think he's going to be the guy for the Rams, and to get him at this spot, especially with a 2-receiver start, not bad for me at all.
And the next pick?
I might go Kittle. Just again, looking at the tight ends and how they perform, another easy situation that if you wanted to stack the 49ers, but I'm glad Juwan Jennings is practicing. Ricky Pearsall's still on the PUP list. I think Kittle's in for another big year.
Yeah, I got 17% George Kittle so far in Best Ball Mania 6, and more than willing to ramp that number up. What do you think about the Niners pass game there?
I mean, the thing that we in the fantasy community always get excited about for Kittle is when somebody's been missing. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, it's always been like, okay, now his number is going to pop. So he played 13 games in his career without Deebo. He averages over 16 PPR points per game in those games. That's just no Deebo. Forget about anybody else missing. 12 games without Ayuk. Most of that came last year. It's over 14.5 PPR points per game. So his numbers are pretty consistent when those guys are missing. Only 3 times where both those guys have been missing, and that's not including McCaffrey on or off the field. So when the receivers are not there, and now you have Deebo off the team, you have Ayuk potentially out at least 4 games, most likely, maybe more. Changing, obviously, because Pearsall's now there for a full season, hopefully, and Jennings as well. I just think that this is Brock Purdy's guy. And so I like Kittle to lead the team in targets and have a big season. I think Jennings, the fact that he's practicing is very promising, because if he was going to be a hold-in, the numbers for guys that have been hold-ins, holdouts recently, not great over the last 2 years. Injury concerns as well. So to me, Kittle is not far behind Bowers and McBride. He was better than them in points per game last year. If those 2 guys don't take a significant step, you're getting a big discount at Kittle compared to where those other guys are getting drafted.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you have in best ball this just gigantic spike week potential from George Kittle. And if we get a healthy season from Christian McCaffrey, like that just helps George Kittle even more in the play action game. Like we've seen him just absolutely destroy teams when McCaffrey's on the field and they have that play action game working. Yeah, I love George Kittle. We know that Kyle Shanahan is one of the better play callers in the NFL, and I mean you got to give it up to him how he gets the ball to his best players. Like that's all that we ask of coaches is like just get the ball to your best guys, and Shanahan definitely does that. I am very curious to see how the defense ends up this year for the Niners, because like that's a defense that on paper, I mean they've got well, it's like they said in the presser yesterday, we have a lot of opportunities for players that we just drafted on defense to play and be starters this year. I do think Robert Saleh is very, very good at getting the most out of his guys. So maybe that defense is actually not terrible, but not as stout as we've seen in the past. We are on the clock. Zay Flowers, James Conner, Chris Olave, Travion Henderson, Juwan Jennings, Jordan Addison.
I kind of like Henderson here. Again, pass catching back, guy that's gonna, I think, be the best running back for the Patriots. And if he is a Josh McDaniels running back, we know the reception should be there for him. So for me, that's a solid upside play, especially with some.
Beautiful. And the next one, we could stack Juwan Jennings. We could take Chris Olave. Zay Flowers is available.
For me, I probably would look, if you want to go a 49er stacker, go with Jennings. Not a bad, upside play again. With the fact that he's practicing, to me is huge. It just the way he performed last year. I know a lot of people like to say, okay, he had a big, spike game against the Rams. I don't hate that.
That's what we're looking for in baseball. We're looking for gigantic spike weeks, man.
Exactly. So again, targets should be there for him. Opportunity is now there. I love Pearsall. I love the opportunity for him, but this is a guy that may struggle to stay healthy. Another soft tissue injury that he's dealing with coming into the start of what is expected to be a big season. Hopefully he's fine, but if Jennings is not dealing with a contract situation, like he's my favorite Niners receiver by far.
Yeah, I feel pretty good that he's going to be, I mean, like you said, he's on the field now, practicing. So that gives you a lot of hope. I mean, even the ones that are holding out, like Terry McLaurin, like these guys almost always end up, coming back to the table and playing. The question is, how much time do they miss during training camp of not being on the field? But I mean, I do think Jennings deserves a little bit more money. I think he's making like $7.5 million.
He signed a 2-year, $15 million extension last year. And I think the thought was, okay, he'll be our third guy, continuing that role. And then you have these injuries that occurred. And, I'm sure they probably have a little buyer's remorse on Brandon Ayuk at this point. But, Jennings, my guess is they'll work something out. He's not going to get a big deal like what McLaurin is looking for. But, maybe he gets a 1-year, $10-12 million extension. And, they do right by him. But I think it makes sense. We could talk about this after we make our pick, just the history of recent hold-ins, hold-outs.
I would love to. Yeah.
It's not great.
I'm very interested in that. Have had conversations about that before. Coming up on our pick, let's see, Isaiah Pacheco, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Darnell Mooney, Brian Robinson Jr., TJ, probably too early for tight end here, but Hawkinson, Jordan Mason.
Yeah, I like Mooney a lot. I know receivers are just coming off the board pretty quickly.
Mooney just went off. Anybody?
I think if we're looking for, huge upside, Mason makes some sense. I think Pacheco is going to be a little bit undervalued. So just based on how he's coming back and healthy, if he's the lead guy there, but I don't know if we want to go third running back. What other receivers are there?
Receivers, Michael Pittman Jr., Ayuk, Cooper Kupp.
I think too soon for these guys.
Higgins. Yeah. You want to go another running back here? You want to go Pacheco?
I think Pacheco makes some sense.
Sure. All right. Yeah. Talking about players who held out and what ended up happening that season.
So the last 2 years, we've had two prominent running backs in Josh Jacobs and Jonathan Taylor. Jacobs missed 3 games and his worst points per game of his career. Taylor missed 7 games and had the second worst points per game of his career. Then you had the 4 guys last year, which were the 3 receivers and Jordan Love. Now, Love only missed 4 practices, whatever that's worth, but did have this contract situation. Who knows how much it played on whatever happened to him. Again, I'm not saying this is the result of it, but did have suffered 2 injuries and went from basically a 5-point per game difference, a 4-point per game difference in his fantasy points. Ayuk, 7 games, injury, was terrible before he got hurt. CD Lamb, obviously Dak Prescott. So there's a lot of different circumstances here, but CD Lamb had the hold in or contract situation, and then has one of his worst seasons, was not obviously playing at the same level he was the year before. Again, Dak gets hurt. The only guy that did better was Jamar Chase. And, clearly great player, great situation for him. Again, there's nothing really you could say contract was a result of injury, was a result of poor play. It's just the facts. These guys had contract situations and their production was not the same and they missed time. I don't think you could say it's a result of that, but it just is what it is. So it makes me a little bit nervous with McLaurin. The fact that he's not going to be with the team makes me a little bit nervous. If it was going to be the case for Jennings or James Cook or Kyron Williams, thankfully the latter 3 all seem to be participating in their practices, and hopefully they get their, the money that they probably deserve.
Yeah, James Cook might have heard offensive coordinator Joe Brady talking about Ray Davis and how exciting it is. He's like, I gotta get back. A few more picks away here. Our team, real quick: Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, George Kittle. If we want to take Purdy, if he's going to be,
I was going to say, this is a spot we should probably take Purdy, just make sure we get him.
Yeah. And then ADP wise, we're looking at Quinshon Judkins after that pick, Evan Ingram, Rashid Shaheed, J.K. Dobbins.
What other receivers are there?
Receivers, Luther Burden, Christian Kirk. The receivers is pretty ugly right now. They're going off real quick. We could take another QB. We could take a tight end.
What are the QBs available?
QBs, Drake May. We could get with.
I like May. That's a good call.
Though that's the bye week.
Same.
Sucks. Do you want to do Tyler Warren?
Let's go for it.
Here.
Upside. Yep.
All right, and we'll do just 2 tight ends. The Colts have been talking up Tyler Warren so hard since they drafted him, and they even before that they were talking up just like wanting to have a Y tight end there. They've been talking about it since at least March 2024, and they've reportedly they wanted Bowers in last year's draft, missed out on that, got Tyler Warren in this year's draft, and they're talking about this massive workload that he would be able to handle and all the different things that he could do. Talk about his QB background, which maybe Tyler Warren QB1 in Indy.
Who knows? Could be better than the 2 guys in front of him for sure.
Yeah. Does it when you're looking at a guy like that who had so much production in his last season there at Penn State, but before that, not a lot of production behind a lot of other tight ends that are in the NFL now. Like, does that worry you at all, or do you just say like, hey, look at 2024, right? Like, look at what he did last year.
You have to take into account, I think, the whole scope of what their college career was, and especially when it's a guy that switched positions, at some point during his career. So that's got to be a factor. You would love to have seen, a slow build toward the 2024 campaign. But like you said, he was on a team that had so many weapons and was a little bit, stifled from what his playing time was and opportunity. And then when you see him take advantage of it, then you start to say, okay, now where do we go from here? Well, you look at the metrics and what he ran and, size and all these things that what he could be as an explosive athlete. I think on top of the draft capital, so if it's, a day 2 or day 3 guy, you're saying, okay, maybe there's a little bit reason to worry. Why did he slip? But the fact that you knew these 2 guys in terms of Warren and Colston Loveland, and Loveland didn't exactly have huge numbers, but you could see what his, type of player that he projects to be. I think whenever those 2 teams, or whenever teams like that, are aggressive in drafting those type of players, you just sort of say, okay, I'm going to take my chances on what the talent could be. you would just like to see in terms of the situation, like better quarterback play. So I actually lean Loveland slightly ahead of Warren just because of, the environment that he's in. But look, it's not going to be very hard if the Colts are smart to make some easier throws for Richardson and or Daniel Jones and using Tyler Warren in that role. It sounds like, based on their plan, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, talking about how like even when he's covered, he's still open. Like thought he had the most unbelievable hands in the entire class. They compared him to, I think it was Jack Doyle. Was it Jack Doyle? Or, no, I think it was another actually better tight end. Sorry, we're on the clock. Christian Kirk is available here past ADP.
Who else is wide receivers? I like Kirk.
Kyle Williams, Quentin Johnston, Cedric.
I think just for upside, Kirk and Tillman make some sense here.
Okay, sounds good.
Because if Joe Flacco is the quarterback, which is 2025, we're talking about ifs. What we saw from Tillman in those 3 games right after they traded Amari Cooper were impressive. And you're looking at a receiving core that's got some obvious talent. Jerry Jeudy, a first-round pick. David Njoku's been solid. Tight end, fantasy tight end. Tillman could easily be that big play threat. And for what we're looking at here, those spike weeks were there. Those 3 games. So. Maybe Shadur Sanders helps him. Maybe Dylan Gabriel helps him. I'm hoping it's Flacco personally, just because of what he'll do for his receivers more so than anything else. So I like him a lot in this format. I unfortunately, every time I do a lot of best ball drafts, I find myself doing Brown stacks, which makes you want to puke. But it's so cheap.
They are cheap.
You get those opportunities.
Yeah, if they're this bad team that like so bad, like the worst team in the NFL that people expect them to be, then they'll be behind a lot. They'll have to throw. Now part of that equation is that they're one of the worst teams because they're not scoring a lot on offense, but could get a high pass rate there. Like you said, if it is Flacco, we've seen how much he likes to chuck it. I do wonder which Joe Flacco we're getting. Like, are we getting comeback player of the year Joe Flacco from 2 seasons ago? Are we getting the Joe Flacco that we saw in like 2 games last season with the Colts when they benched Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco was just like so terrible that they had to kind of bite the bullet and get Richardson back out on the field? I think kind of the silver lining there in that situation in Cleveland is that Kevin Stefanski, good coach, good play caller, and they have, like 4 quarterbacks there in that room that like maybe one of them ends up panning out okay, right? Like you have, like they're not great quarterbacks. They're not going to win MVP anytime soon, but you have like 4 shots and a couple of them with rookies there of like maybe this guy could be the dude for us.
Maybe. A lot of maybes, though.
Yeah. Our team real quick. Brock Purdy, Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan. Okay, we're on the clock. ADP-wise here, Jaden Blue, Austin Eckler, Joshua Palmer, Cam Ward. If we want to go ahead.
I don't mind just the upside of 2 running backs there of Jaden Blue and Jalen Wright, looking at if they get those opportunities. Wright's going to hopefully be the second guy in Miami. I don't want to see Alexander Madison in that role.
Yeah, I would say we might be okay at running back right now. Might need another receiver or Ward here who we could backstack.
Sure.
Let's take, because QBs are just like flying off.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now in these underdog drafts, so we get Ward there, and then we're down to Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, Anthony Richardson. Let's take a look at this board. Yeah, look at this whole like
a lot of purple.
That's a lot of purple, man. That's a Barney board right there.
Yeah.
I'm big on Cam Ward this year. I mean, we could I feel Brock Purdy and Cam Ward, like maybe we get by with just 2 quarterbacks on this team. I know people love 3 quarterback teams on Underdog, but we'll see. Wide receiver.
There's always a Browns quarterback out there.
There's like 8 of them out
That's
there.
right.
All right, quick look at our team. Brock Purdy, Cam Ward, running back, Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco, Jaden Blue. At receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, Christian Kirk, Cedric Tillman, and then tight end George Kittle and Tyler Warren. I think this is shaping up pretty good here.
A lot of upside.
Yeah, a lot of upside, and I think we could probably fit in a third QB and end up with like a 3-5-8-2 build here. Yeah, I feel pretty decent about this running back.
I wouldn't be opposed to taking the third tight end just because we took Ward. Like if Okonkwo was there.
Yes, I do like Okonkwo quite a bit. I've stacked he and Cam Ward a lot this draft season, and then we also have the wide receiver stack pieces with them with Alec Iomanor or Kamer Dike.
Yep.
That's the I know DK is the pronunciation. I get tripped up on his first name.
Oh, I'm a Florida guy and I can't even pronounce it.
Oh, okay, that makes me feel better. All right, not too far away from our pick. This would be a Chig. Like this would be where we would need to take Chig Okonkwo.
I think so.
There. And looking at receivers, there is Michael Wilson, Alec Pierce, De'Ami Brown, Darius Slayton, Jalen Noel. We have Christian Kirk. So I don't mind getting like two receivers from the same team, but not usually like two slot receivers from the same team. Any of these receivers kind of stand out to you?
I mean, look, Slayton is certainly for a best ball format. You know, what we've seen whenever there's been somebody missing, he has big spike potential, especially with a downfield thrower like Russell Wilson at this point. So knowing the potential for him to be the second outside guy, I think, Wandale will be the slot receiver most likely, so there's, upside play here in this spot.
Yeah, I like Slayton a lot. Got 23% of them so far. We will add on to that, and we'll have 2 picks left after this. Our team right now, Brock Purdy, Cam Ward, Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco, Jaden Blue, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, Christian Kirk, Cedric Tillman, Darius Slayton, George Kittle, Tyler Warren, Chig Okonkwo. It's just a beastly tight end.
What's left at quarterback?
Quarterbacks that are left is Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Tyler Shuck, Russell Wilson, Jackson Dart. We might be able to get by here with Purdy and Ward. I think it would either be we add on 2 receivers here at the end or a quarterback and receiver.
I think Richardson, if he's there, just knowing what he's capable of.
Yeah.
Makes some sense, especially with, Warren. So we get a little stack action.
For sure. Love the upside of Anthony Richardson. I don't think it's like as bearish a situation as people kind of make it out to be. People just assume that Daniel Jones is going to start all 17 games for the Colts this year. I don't think that's the case. I think the picture a lot of people have of Daniel Jones was the last like kind of full big season that he had, that first year with Brian Daboll, that earned that contract for Daniel Jones. But I just think he's not that good of a quarterback.
No,
at this point in his career.
I almost wish for him, and granted, obviously he's got a chance to start for the Colts, but it feels like these guys that have had these, early projections based on where they were drafted and gotten a chance to get better coaching. He spent a lot of time with Kevin O'Connell in that building, but you see what it did for Baker Mayfield after just needing, right before us, needing that reset. Sam Darnold, obviously same thing. Like, I think he would have benefited like being a backup somewhere else, but hard again, pass on being a starter.
Yeah. All right. We are on the clock, looking at receivers here. There is Tutu Atwell, which is a player stack.
Any
Dante,
of the other Titans guys?
yeah, there's Alec Iomanor.
Yeah, I'd say go that route.
You want Io? We got Atwell. Do you want to take Iomanor on top there?
Yeah, sure. Can.
All right, that'll work. And that's going to be our team right here. Brock Purdy, Cam Ward at running back, Kyron Williams, Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, Isaiah Pacheco, Jaden Blue, wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, Juwan Jennings, Christian Kirk, Cedric Tillman, Darius Slayton, Tutu Atwell, Alec Iomanor, tight end, George Kittle, Tyler Warren, Chig Okonkwo. How are you feeling about this team here, Jamey?
A lot of upside, and I think kind of the sentiment, which is the right one, is like a lot of potential spike weeks. If Tillman can build off those 3 games, obviously we saw it for Jennings in the one game last year when there was no Kittle and there was no Debo on the field. Obviously no Debo for the whole season now. The running backs have huge potential. I mean, I'm worried a lot about Aaron Jones at his age, and played through 3 significant injuries last year. So Jordan Mason showed he could be pretty special in getting an opportunity. Pacheco was off to a great start. I actually got a chance to speak to Andy Reid at the owners' meetings this year. He said we knew he wasn't going to be the same guy, Pacheco, when he came back. Expects him to be that guy this year. Jaden Blue looks like he's getting an opportunity with the Cowboys. Like, there's just so much potential with this team.
Yeah, and we're making a little bet here on Cam Ward with the Titans. Brian Callahan came in last year talking about how much he wanted to throw the ball, and then Will Levis was his quarterback, and he said, "You know what? I think we might actually run the ball a little more at this point." But I believe in Cam Ward. I'm not sure about the receiving core there, like how that's going to shake out. Obviously, Calvin Ridley is going to be the big number 1 target there. As far as like second and targets, it could be Chig Okonkwo. I don't know like which of these receivers will step up to be the wide receiver 2 there. Like maybe it's Ironman, or maybe they just have Lockett out there at what age? 30, 34 is he now?
I think 33.
33.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's name this draft as we do. It's going to be Jamey E, guaranteed winner. Easy money.
There you go.
All
right. In your closet.
Yeah, I'm going to start spending that money right now. Before I let you go, Jamey, I just want to know, what are your 4 favorite films?
My 4 favorite builds?
Films.
Oh, films.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased. I have a relative that's an actor. So my 4 favorite films, I guess I should just plug his favorite films, his best films. The Social Network would be one. The 2 Now You See Me movies that have already been out, and then the one that he just did, which, why am I blanking on the name, that Kieran Culkin won Best Supporting Actor?
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
That's bad.
I'm also blanking on it as well.
Just go to IMDb and check out Jesse Eisenberg. But that's my cousin, so I got to I'll always stick true to the family. So
awesome. He has a great filmography. Have you seen the what's it called? I think it was The Art of Self-Defense.
Yes. Great film.
So good. He's great in that.
Yeah.
All right, and he played a Lex Luthor as well, didn't he?
Did. Very controversial. It was listen, the superhero genre is always, I think, touchy to a lot of people because you get nostalgic with, I don't think anybody's gonna be better than Christopher Reeve as Superman, as we're finding out. But yeah, I thought he did a great job. I'm again a little biased, but his spin on it was interesting and fun. I know he enjoyed that experience. So the nice thing about his career is he's done a lot of different things. He's gotten to be a villain. He's gotten to be a multi-billionaire who created an amazing company. A magician. He's had a lot of different hats. He's been proven now to be a good writer and director. So it's fun to follow.
Yeah. I just recently watched Superman 1 and 2 for the first time.
Okay.
And yeah, I thought Christopher Reeve was so good. I can't believe I'd never watched it before. Gene Hackman also, very good, kind of hamming it up. And then just the special effects obviously pale in comparison to what we have today, but just watching it, kind of getting the sense that this was probably pretty groundbreaking visual effects at the time that they made this film.
It's funny you say that. I think about that all the time when I see the original Star Wars and Superman. Like just to I mean, so not to give away how old I am, but I'll be 49 this year. So Superman to me was, I was 5 years old. I think it was 81, 82 when it came out. So I didn't know any better. But to be an adult and seeing all that stuff in Star Wars in the late 70s, and then to see, Superman flying, and, clearly people have saw it, the old TV shows, but like to see him fly off a building must have been like, oh my God, how are they doing this?
Yeah.
No green screen, no any of those things, CGI never existed, so it must have been just mind blowing for people at that time.
It was like the train coming at the audience all over again.
Yes, exactly.
Superman's going to fly out of the screen.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you almost answered it, so I feel like I have to ask the question now. What are your 4 favorite builds?
Builds. Players or stacks, or I guess
either way, and any way you want to take it.
I like what we did here. I think clearly everybody goes into it wanting a Bengal stack or wanting to get the top tier offenses, and look, they're going to be successful. But like I said, I find myself falling into a lot of Brown stacks. I would have suggested it went right before us, but once we committed to Brian Thomas, like let's go get Trevor Lawrence and maybe instead of getting Hunter, getting Diami Brown or getting Brenton Strange. Those things I think are going to be the sort of differences. So to go the Titans route, which people tack on Cam Ward typically as the third quarterback, and maybe you take one of the rookies. Like it's nice to do that with a Calvin Ridley, but I think again, if Chig hits in his last 3 games last season were great, something to build off of. If Iomanor is the second best receiver, or let's say Ridley hasn't missed any time, maybe he becomes a go-to guy for Ward. These are the things I think that you try to accomplish when you leave these things. And look, everybody doing Best Ball Mania is very smart. If you're going to invest the money in it, so they're going to be unique. But I think the more unique you are, the better off you sort of feel about the potential here. So I always like the secondary stack. So like the Browns to me are an easy one. I find myself doing a lot of Broncos ones just because Sutton is relatively cheap for a number 1 receiver. If you can get Nicks at the right cost, and then you can do so many different things with it, Ingram or Mims or Pat Bryant, like that's an easy one to sort of fall into. But yeah, I think it's just, the more diverse you could be. I love like the secondary stacks personally, like where you're not necessarily getting the number 1 receiver. And so like what we did with the Titans, like is something I try to do a lot of. Like you can get Mooney and Penix and, take a flyer on Pitts. And if he does have anything close to what he could be, Mooney builds off of last year and Penix looks like, a potential star. Like that's one I find myself doing a lot of as well.
Yeah. I feel like the Falcons are going to spin it quite a bit this year.
Yep.
With Penix. All right, we got another draft at the top of the hour with Best Ball Mania 2 champion Liam Murphy. Jamey, please let us know what you've got going on, where we can find you.
A lot of reaction to training camp news going on right now at CBSSports.com. You can check out our podcast, which is on YouTube and wherever podcasts are available. Fantasy Football Today. We did a recent mock draft where you were kind enough to join us as well. So we got a lot of mock drafts going on also to get you guys ready for the upcoming redraft season. It's here. So check it out.
Awesome. Yeah, y'all go check it out. Thank y'all for hanging out here today, and we'll see you at the top of the hour. Peace.